The central problem in aviation psychology is why pilots misinterpret their situations. One term for that is a sensory illusion. If you believe something about your situation that isn't true, and then you take action based on your misunderstanding, you're going to do something that isn't appropriate to your situation, and you're going to get into an accident. The solution to that is to learn how different situations mislead your perceptions so you can focus on getting the information you need and figure out what's really happening. It's easy to believe that your own point of view is what's normal because your own point of view is the one you know the best. But if you try to fly with the assumption that flying must be easy because birds fly and people are smarter than birds, you're gonna die. Being a person is what you knew how to do first, but that doesn't prove that being a person flying around in the sky is what's normal. Being a bird flying around in the sky is what's normal. So to learn how to fly safely, you have to learn how to stop thinking like a person and start thinking like a bird. A lot of people have written a lot of books in recent years about the psychology of religious fundamentalism. This is the same problem, just on a much bigger scale. Religious fundamentalism is caused by a combination of 5 basic factors that every certified teacher learns in the course of their training, plus child development. You believe whatever explanation for something you hear first, especially if you learn it as a child. You believe whatever you hear the most often. You believe whatever you hear from the people you trust the most. You believe whatever the people you trust respond positively for you believing. And you believe whatever ideas help you accomplish your goals. None of that depends on you ever seeing any actual proof that the ideas are true. If your nice Sunday school teacher tells you that the people of your religion are your God's chosen people, and that another group of people is evil, and you learn about that as a child, and you hear the same thing from everyone else in your church, and they all smile at you when they hear you say it too, and planning your life around that idea works out well for you because people who agree with that idea support you, then that idea becomes the easiest to believe. Then that idea becomes your point of reference for interpreting the world. Well, the Euro-centric version of history does the exact same thing. If your nice history teacher tells you about Euro-centric history, and you learn it as a child, and you hear the same thing from everyone else because they all went to the same school as you did, and they smile at you when you say the same things, and people who agree with that idea support you in the decisions you make in life, you have the exact same situation. The Euro-centric version of history isn't true, but the education system is used to make everyone feel very strongly that it's supposed to be true. This is why minority struggles for equality in America are always an uphill battle, because no matter how much evidence they have of being equal people, the people in the majority feel very strongly that the evidence is supposed to be wrong. On the one hand, you're not going to solve anything by making children feel guilty for the past they have no control over. But on the other hand, pretending those things didn't happen isn't a solution either. Contrary to what a lot of white people believe, when minorities say that Euro-centric history isn't good enough, they aren't just feeling sorry for themselves. Native Americans, for example, used to make up 100% of the population of the Americas, and now they make up about 1% of the population of the United States. When you're outnumbered 99 to 1 by people whose cultural ancestors wiped out roughly 95% of your cultural ancestors, you have a lot at stake on what ideas people in the United States are learning and what decisions they're going to make in the future based on those ideas. The struggle among people in the majority in favor of minority struggles for equality is a struggle between trust and xenophobia. Psychologists call this the in-group and the out-group, and this is well documented also. The debate over who we should recognize as equals is really a debate about who we can trust if we treat them like equals. The people who support equal rights for everyone are always the people who believe that being human beings is what makes us members of the same group, and that's enough common ground for us to build upon. You can't overcome xenophobia just by telling people that to trust another group of people. But on the other hand, every teacher in America is supposed to know these principles of education. I learned them all in Psychology 101 almost 20 years ago. As Albert Einstein said, there is no problem that can be solved by the same level of thinking that caused it. In aviation, you come face to face with that fact. You haven't solved the problem until you figure out why you made your mistake in the first place, and you've learned how not to make that mistake again in the future. When you're the most powerful group of people in your society, you have a serious handicap to your ability to learn stuff. If someone tells you that some of your ideas are wrong, you have two choices. One, you can figure out what to do about the fact that you and everyone you know have planned your lives and built your society around some ideas that were wrong. Or two, you can ignore what the other person said and keep on doing what you've been doing and force other people to suffer the consequences of the mistakes you're making. A lot of white people supported the civil rights movement, but a lot of other white people opposed it. Some white people hung on to the idea that black people were inferior to them for as long as they could get away with it, and some white people still haven't given up that idea. But I've never heard of any black people who felt that they were inferior to white people. So just because you haven't thought much about an idea doesn't prove nobody has thought about it. If the goal of the education system is for people to learn new things, then you better get over the fact that minority groups already know some things that majority groups haven't thought of. The only way that banning ethnic studies in favor of Euro-centric history can be considered an improvement in the education system is if the goal of the education system is to prevent people from learning new ideas. Democracy is inseparable from secular government because the ability of minorities to defend their rights depends on decisions being based on facts as a common point of reference everyone shares. That, of course, depends on education, so that everyone learns what the facts are and how they fit together. Right now, a lot of Americans who volunteered to risk their lives to defend democracy are fighting in wars, and I was almost one of them. But why should anyone bother risking their lives to defend democracy against foreign oppressors if politicians like Jan Brewer are just going to destroy democracy right here at home?